Hi, and welcome to Autism Building the Puzzle One Piece at a Time. My name is Sean. I'm your host for the day. This is my wonderful wife sitting next to me.
Hi, guys.
Alexandria. Today's episode, we're going to be talking about stimming.
Yes.
Self-stimulating behavior for children with autism. So we're very familiar with this subject because Greyson is definitely very much into stimming, all different types. So,
yes.
And we'll talk a little bit about some of the stuff he does.
Yes.
A little bit later in the episode. But to start off with, let's talk just a little bit about what stimming is. So, Alex, why don't you tell the audience a little bit about what stimming is?
You got it. So stimming is repetitive body movements or repetitive movements of objects, referred to as self-stimulatory behavior or stimming. This type of behavior is common in autistic children and those with developmental delays or challenges. It can include the use of senses, visual, sound, smell, taste, balance, and movement.
Yeah, basically
a wide array of things. So.
Yeah, basically any type of sense you have. So
yes,
touch, smell, taste, hear,
right,
all the above. So
right.
Now, why does this happen? Why do kids have self-stimulating behaviors? It's basically a coping mechanism to regulate the child's nervous system. Mm-hmm. So they need some of that input in order to just regulate themselves, to feel normal. And I think a lot of people have some sort of stimulated behavior. Mm-hmm. A lot of people need to tap their fingers or
bite their nails.
Those
twirl your hair is another stim.
So those are all types of, stimming behaviors.
Yeah.
Even for non-autistic people. So
yes,
it's quite common. It's just a lot more prevalent with kids with autism. So.
Yeah, even like for instance, like head banging. Neurotypical kids do that all the time. You do not have to be autistic to head bang. So that's another common one. Sometimes they also stim to calm their anxiety, to understand their bodies, to regulate their focus. I know with ABA, a lot of times we have to kind of throw Grayson upside down. Every couple trials we run to try to get him regulated. Another thing is sometimes these children can't handle their emotions and they're just overwhelmed. So they stim to kind of regulate that and calm themselves. Yeah. And a lot of kids like it because it feels good. You'll notice kids, even neurotypical, will spin and spin and spin. They love that feeling of spinning. It's almost like a high to them, they describe it as. So yeah, again, neurotypical kids can do this too. I'm a nail biter, so I guess I stim. There's women that twirl their hair. They stim. We all have our things.
I'm tapping my leg right now.
Yes.
So.
And if you notice, every time we do a podcast, I have to have a pen in my hands. Like, I just said to Sean, are you using that pen? I need that pen. And even like a couple days ago when we were recording, I have to be holding something. Even when we go out, a lot of times I'm like, you're like, leave your pocketbook in the car. I'm like, no, I need it because I need to carry something. Like, I don't want to, what do you do with your hands? You just walk up and just stand there with your hands next to your side. I need my purse. So everybody has their quirks.
So on to some of the different types of stimulating behavior. We'll talk about auditory stims first.
Yeah.
Basically, it's using the person's sense of hearing and sound. Some of the examples would be vocal sounds such as humming, grunting, high-pitched screeching.
Yes.
And Grayson definitely does a lot of humming.
Yeah, and a lot of high-pitched screaming. That high-pitched screaming, again, another auditory stim.
Yep. A lot of them will finger snap. They will tap on objects, cover their ears a lot.
Yes.
Another one, a lot of times Grayson, when he's overstimulated, will cover his ears. Mm-hmm. It's hard to know when he's covering his ears because he doesn't want to listen to you.
Or it's too loud.
Or if it's too loud.
Yeah, so. If he's in therapy and we're like, good job. We're like, okay, good job. You can't say it too loud because then what will happen is if it's too loud, he won't do what he just did that you want him to do, that he did a good job on. He won't do that again because he doesn't want to hear you do that again.
Yeah.
So that can have an effect.
So for the kids that are verbal, some of their stimulating auditory behaviors would be repetitive speech, so it's like similar to echolalia type
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
Repeating song lyrics and
Just repeating the same thing over and over
the same
again.
book sentences from their favorite book over and over again, or movie lines, or things like that.
Yeah, it shouldn't. I think it's alarming when it becomes repetitive. It should not be repetitive. A lot of times I'll hear children like dog, 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 over and over. That is repetitive. That's a concern.
Some sort of stimulating behavior.
Yeah, absolutely.
So next we have tactile stimming. So that would be the use of a person's sense of touch. So how things feel.
Like Greyson touching your
beard. Greyson touches my beard. He rubs his face against it.
He loves it.
I don't know how he handles it all the time.
It's like
sometimes
all red.
his cheeks get all red from rubbing against my facial hair. I mean, even his ABA therapist has a really short shaved head.
Yes.
And when it's like just growing out just a tad bit, Greyson absolutely loves it.
Rubs
He
his
rubs it
head. Every night you'll see
Yeah.
Greyson hugging Sean, and he's like touching the back of his head, like scratching him.
Yeah, he loves the feel of like hair and stuff.
Yeah, he loves that.
So they like to touch different texture items. Finger tapping is another example.
Another thing Greyson does.
Yeah, some of the negative stuff might be they like to rub certain things. They might pick at stuff on their skin, scratch their skin, which obviously can be a little bit of a health concern.
Yeah, Greyson has picked.
And he
had
done
a cut
before.
and he picked it. I mean, over and over again. Whenever it would scab, he would just pick it, and it got infected, and we had to get antibiotic cream, antibacterial. God, you can tell we're in the middle of a pandemic. Yeah, so that's a concern for Greyson because he does not feel pain. So he will literally, remember when we were down the shore on vacation, he just scraped his whole cut like raw to where you could see the flesh. Like,
he kept ripping it open.
And he was just sitting there like ripping it open and no expression change, nothing.
Didn't bother him at all.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's something definitely, if you have that going on with your child, if you notice that, make sure you check with your doctor because that is one of the stims that can be concerning for the health of your child. So.
Yeah, and stimming, really it's not a negative thing. You don't want to stop it as long as they're not hurting themselves or another child or person. Then you try to kind of transition them into another item. Let's say, for instance, they're biting a child. You get them a chew toy. It sounds ridiculous. It is kind of just like a dog toy almost. I'll have to take a picture of it later for you guys, but it's a chew stick and it's rigid and it works really, really well. And it stops that behavior from him chewing on his shirt and things like that. So stimming can be a really positive thing and you never want to stop it just because they need that.
I mean, I think you can't really have them stop. They can't stop.
And you shouldn't.
The only thing you can do is if there's something that's a health risk to them, a stim that's like unhealthy for them or for others, obviously, you want to do something to manage that. What you need to do is find another stimming behavior to replace that one that's a lot more healthy for the child and for others.
Yeah.
So the third type of stimming behavior would be visual. Mm-hmm. So staring at objects, gazing at objects, such as ceiling fans. Greyson loves looking at ceiling fans. He's enamored by them.
Yes.
Anywhere we go where there's a ceiling fan, he's constantly looking up the whole time. Another thing he does, moving his hands in front of his eyes.
Yes, he'll take an object.
And he'll, like a flashcard, and he'll hold it over the side of his face and
over and over
side
again.
of his head and look at it out of the corner of his eye.
It's so cute.
Something they call side-eyeing.
Yes.
Hand flapping, all different sorts of hand flapping.
He doesn't flap too much anymore.
No.
He used to flap a lot, and really he doesn't flap anymore. He does jump a lot.
I never realized, actually, that hand flapping was considered a visual stim.
Yeah, because I think it's the same as like an object.
I thought it was more of a
on that
vestibular,
side of the eye.
motion-based
that would be
stim.
spinning and things like that.
So
yeah,
eye tracking is another example, and lining objects up, which is another very common thing that our children with autism.
It's weird because Greyson never lined things up, and then he went through remember 3 weeks recently of lining things up. Remember, you walk out and now you don't see it anymore. He just stopped. He only did it for 3 weeks, and then that was it. He doesn't ever line up
goes through
really.
some phases.
Yeah.
So one of the biggest ones for Greyson is vestibular, which is the fourth type.
A lot of vestibular input needed.
And that is really helpful for him during his therapy, even as a reward. reinforcer for his ABA therapy when he does stuff right.
Yeah.
So obviously rocking, spinning, jumping, pacing, all different things like that. So a lot of his reinforcer right now in ABA, we've been trying to move a little bit away from the iPad being the reinforcer to something else. So we found that stimming, throwing him up in the air, spinning him around when he gets stuff right. That's the stuff
that motivates
him right now. And that's the stuff he needs to feel good and regulated. So
it helps him focus and come back to the table after, the trial and come back and do another trial again. So it's very helpful, and that's, again, why you don't want to stop it.
Yeah.
Because without that, he wouldn't be able to focus.
The final category is olfactory or taste stimming.
Mm-hmm.
This is some stuff that we're not as familiar with because Greyson is not really... obviously, he has some feeding problems and food problems, so he's not as big with... that kind of stuff. So that would be like sniffing.
But there are a lot of children that suffer with that. Like they have to smell things. They have to smell
before
people.
They eat them. Yep.
Yeah.
Smelling people is another one.
Yeah, licking, which could
licking
also...
things, which could be dangerous. And
absolutely. And I will say, like, a lot of autistic children don't understand, like, licking, for instance. If they're licking strangers, they don't understand personal space. Like, they have no boundary of their space. They don't understand their space or that person's space. So they're constantly, like, all over. You know what I mean? That's very common.
So, and that's obviously, something that could be on the border of pica, I guess, if you get really, really extreme with it.
Yeah.
So just watch out for that, because that could definitely be licking different things is obviously not.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great.
Yeah.
For kids, so
no,
could be a health issue. So make sure if that's going on, you talk to your doctor about that.
Yeah, you don't want them looking at something toxic.
So let me ask Alex this question: is stimming a problem?
Only if it is harmful, again, to another child or to your child. Other than that, no, you should not stop it. I have, a lot of parents will do. We've tried quiet hands, but I have never wanted to stop it. Even like if Greyson's headbanging, you just protect. Never would I say like, no, don't do that. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, because you don't want to do that. That's the wrong thing. You just want to protect and make sure that they're safe, and that's it.
Like we said earlier, I think it's very important. It's something that they need to regulate their nervous system, obviously, like we said.
Yeah.
So they do need some level of that. It's more... as they get older, it's more important to just manage it and make sure they can get what they need at the appropriate time, so it's not interfering with, school, learning, or different things like that. Because obviously they're in the middle of class, you don't want them standing up, jumping around, spinning in circles and screaming.
Yeah, I mean, but listen, hey, if that's what happens, that's what happens. I mean, but that's the one thing is it can also affect, like we just said, your child's attention to the outside world, which in turn can affect your child's ability to learn and communicate with others. Yeah. So that's where, if you do see stimming behavior, there are a few things such as, number one, medical professional, and ruling out other things. When Greyson would headbang, what we did was we made sure he didn't have a tumor. It's just like a dog, how they would describe it. If a dog has a tumor in the head, they push up against things to relieve that pressure.
The pressure against the outside of their head relieves the pressure on the inside.
Exactly. Yeah. So when Greyson's first started headbanging and, we couldn't get it under control, we thought, okay, is there a tumor in the brain? So we right away went down to CHOP. We had an MRI done, and you just want to rule out everything medical. Another thing that is really helpful is exercise. Yeah. And that's just like vestibular input. They can refocus back to how they need to be. That physical activity keeps them engaged. And that
might be a healthier way to help limit it when they're doing other activities.
Exactly.
Like school.
Exactly.
Like that,
exactly. So. And bring back that stronger sense of focus. Another thing is speech therapy. Experts explain that stimming is a form of communication. So, for example, if a child can't tell you that it's too noisy and they're just screaming back and forth, sometimes speech therapy can help with that, for them to communicate with you, hey, it's too noisy, instead of just rocking back and forth, screaming. And I know when Greyson's going through a hard time, we had like 2-3 weeks of him struggling, I'd say about a month or two ago, and he was kind of overstimulated. So what I did was TV goes off, no matter... our programming, TV goes off, blinds get shut, lights go off, because it's too much overstimulation. And I've always been a firm believer that with that, even since Grayson was a baby, you know, people would be like, oh, do you want to come over? Holidays, family parties. I'd be like, how many people are going to be there? And that was before I even knew Grayson was autistic, because it's not good for any child to have that much going on all the time.
Yeah, I think it's a little different too. Like if you're, you know, the first ones at an event, or he's at home and people slowly start coming over.
Yeah, if you're having,
it's a little different than him walking into a room of 50 people.
Yeah.
That could be very overwhelming for him, and
Yeah.
I'm sure it's overwhelming for, you know, a lot of people. You know, even non-autistic people. So
yeah, I mean, and he's great going out, but we know wherever we go, no matter where it is, no matter what's going on, if we have to pack up and leave, we're packing up and leaving, because we're not going to keep him in a situation that he physically cannot handle for our benefit.
Yeah.
And that's the one thing. If you see your child struggling like that, shut it down immediately.
Yeah.
Take the loud noise away, shut it down.
Yeah, so some of the stimming behaviors could be due to an level of overstimulation. So
Yeah. Always remove the harmful triggers that they're having. You have to put yourself in their situation. And even like loud noises, like some parents will get upset and yell. That's not helping them. You have to keep your voice low, your face soft, and respond, because that's not helping their anxiety if they're having a hard time.
yeah,
I never yell at Gray for stuff like that. I try to assure him, come here, you know, because it's the best way to relieve that pressure from him, especially if he's having overwhelming emotions and he can't deal with it. The worst thing to do is have him think, well, I'm having this hard time and now my mom is just walking away or screaming at me. I'm not helping then the situation. And I realized that a long time ago. And that's
and I think
when I started giving him.
I mean, I think it's hard enough for, you know, adults to just, you know, or, you know, normal neurotypical kids to express their emotions sometimes that they're going through. So I can only imagine if they're they have heightened, you know, senses and heightened stimulation and challenges with communication, how difficult it could be.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
absolutely.
So
yeah, definitely.
So,
and you know, even if the kid can communicate, children at 4, they do not know how to recite and communicate their feelings. They don't know how to relay that and tell you how they feel.
Well,
and sometimes they don't even know how they feel, honestly.
Yeah. It might be a great time, actually, for the emotion chart.
Yes, 100%.
You know, you can get them. There's a lot of places that
can
sell them.
make
You can make one yourself. Just a different emotions, you know, facial expressions that depict different emotions, and they can, you know, point to the ones that they're feeling, and then it's got a thermometer thing on it to show you how much they're feeling that emotion and things like that. So that's something that would be a great tool.
Yes.
To help with them, you know, learning their emotions and how to express them, you know, in a healthy way, and help you guys help them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, you know, if you guys have more questions about, you know, stimming and things like that, definitely leave them in the comments. We're going to be doing a Q&A, you know, in the next couple weeks episode, going over some of your guys' questions. So feel free to leave them in there so we can add them to the list of questions we'll address.
Yes.
Do you have anything else to add?
No, guys. Thanks, as always, for tuning in. You know, we have a great time.
For those on video, I'm wearing one of our sponsors' shirts today, the Speech Paradigm. So,
Yes.
Yeah, so.
Beautiful looking shirt.
Definitely.
Great company.
So, Alex, why don't you tell them where they can find us?
You guys can find us on Facebook. We have a page and a group, and on Instagram under Building the Puzzle. And pretty soon our blog will be up and running. Buildingthepuzzle.com. Exciting.
Yeah, super exciting.
Yeah. So this is getting a little tough to manage now, you know. So
in the future we'll be able to just say you can find us everywhere.
You can, pretty much. Yes.
So
at Building the Puzzle.
With that,
thanks for tuning in, guys.
Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you guys later.
We look forward to the next episode.